Ales and Scales, The Empty Throne. Chapter 28, Cretacean Hearts Bloom. Athera is finally free from rebel control. The Royal Alliance wastes no time in making skirmish parties to wipe out remaining rebel influence in Maglo, just as they did in Tricia. Massive repairs are being done for the city, like fixing the eastern wall where the battering ram made its hole. Lots of raptors who live in Athera express their gratitude to their liberators. Many tell them stories of their families being dragged out by dark mistcasters while the rebels acted like thugs, while resources were getting scarce due to having no control. To organize the efforts, Silvus places many of his allies in charge, with Orzim as the head and acting beta lord of Maglo. Silvus finds himself walking through the private quarters hall of his old castle. Since the return, he has been walking around the castle to catch some memories. He stops by his own private quarters to see it surprisingly still intact. Closing the door, he decides to walk to another door, leading to his mother's old quarters, hoping Jezza did not mess up anything. His mother's old quarters, the same place his mother took him before his escape. Thank the spirits it is not out of place. Silvus searches around the wizard-style room, hoping to find something his mother left behind. He searches through a bookshelf and he spots what looks like a rusty old diary. Since his mother is gone, he hopes she will not mind if he reads it. Taking the diary, the young raptor walks up to the bed to sit where he can read. He opens up the diary, reading through the pages, which are mostly about his mother's hatchlinghood, her favorite books, places, and being giddy with new spells. Yet she learns nothing about friends, being antisocial as Arcus described her. The closest thing the diary mentions about other raptors are her family, like his grandfather, having her sent to Arcus for private tutoring. Eventually, the diary begins to talk about his mother's experience with his father, Sulthur. Starting with her arrival in Padalot chapter of Monastery, the diary reads,
Winter's birth, 2023, 1424. Today is my first day of private tutelage with Arcus, the art sage himself. I overheard many raptors telling me that he's very nice and funny. It is hard for me to believe that an art sage, the head of the Mystatorium and second to the Alpha King, would possess such a manner. When I finally arrived at the main campus in Padalot, there he was, art sage Pendra Arcus. I thought he would be one of those strict teachers who would harshly scold you. Yet he had a friendly aura around him. He made a playful laugh and told me not to be afraid. The other students are both boy raptors. One is silver and the other is chocolate brown. The silver one seems to be very eccentric and always loved to look proud. He was the first one to see me, looking very happy, and he walked up, hoping to greet me. When he told me his name was Ultimar Sulthur, I got even more nervous that my fellow student is the Alpha Prince himself. Yet he has this sense of chivalry to the point that he respected personal space and offered if I ever needed help. I ease up a bit, sensing a large amount of light inside of him, which means he's okay. The other one, Bylark, he calls himself, did not seem interested in me at all, but I could sense a rising darkness inside of him. All he cared about is trying to be a good mist caster.
The first 6 pages are mostly about Silvus' mother, being a student under Arcus' tutelage. As he reads on, he begins to read that his mother's starting to talk more about his father. That gets him interested. Looking around to make sure he is still alone, he reads on.
Winter's rebirth, 10, 1425. Throughout my time as a private student, Solvi has been such a good help. I know I might be repeating myself, but he always seems to enjoy spending time with me, studying together. The more I spend time with him, I'm starting to feel this weird feeling in my chest when I am around him. One time, he invited me to his palace, and by the spirits, it is so enchanting. He even introduced me to his father, Alpha King Sylvain III, who seems to be kind of ill. The poor male must be very old. During my stay, Sophie really wants to teach me how to make friends, as he introduced me to some of his own, like Pendra Gwynny, a Knight of the Mist, and Arx's daughter.
Gwenny knew about my mom and dad? Silvus thought out loud. He is surprised that Gwenny, the knight he had traveled to Fort Gallagher with, knew his parents the whole time. Maybe after the war is over, he can ask her a few things. He continues to read through the diary until he comes across a hanging crystal key on the page where his father has just proposed to his mother. He picks up the key, taking a closer look at it. The key itself looks very regal and nicely carved. Silvus looks around the room, hoping to find a chest or something that the key might open. Next to the wall, right by a window, to the bed's left, he sees a large wardrobe-like shelf with strange runes on it. Getting off the bed, he approaches the wardrobe and uses the key to open it up to reveal a caster's staff, nicely preserved. Looking at it with awe, Silvus takes the staff by the metal handle for a closer look. The wood of the staff is colored navy blue. A large crystal mist orb is placed on top, where mist casting is performed. Looking below, he sees a long mithril blade attached to it. Whoever forged the staff must be clever enough to divide it between the metal handle, or else mist casting will be impossible. It is not just any staff. According to the legend, this particular staff that Silvus is gazing at was carved from the branches of the wellspring. The staff of Maglo, Silvus says to the staff. Out of nowhere, a knocking sound is heard, snapping him back in reality. Who is it? Silvus calls out.
It's me, Osea. May I come in?
The voice calls back. Osea, what is she doing here? Silvus thinks to himself as he gently puts the staff away into the wardrobe. He could have sworn he sent her back to Tricia to be safe. Then he walks up to the door and opens it up, and he gets tackled into a hug by a tearful Osea.
Oh, Sylvie, I was so worried about you.
The she-raptor buries her head into his chest. Silvus gently pushes her away to look into her eyes with a smile and asks with a brow raised. How and why did you come here?
Buck came to me and escorted me back here. He told me that you guys finally took back Maglo.
She replies back with light in her eyes. So Buck went back to Tricia and brought her here? Silvus guesses as Osea stands in front looking at him with a smile until she gasps, looking around the bedroom behind him.
Is this?
She guesses as Silvus lets her in. She must be enjoying the wizardly aesthetic room, which is a scholar's paradise. He finds it cute to watch her look around the place. Silvus tells her that they are in his mother's old room, which belonged to all Beta Lords in the past. He even shows her 3 nice bookshelves placed around one corner, knowing she will smile at the sight of it. Speaking of books, Osea takes notice of one particular book that Silvus is holding, so she asks him what it is and points at it. Silvus turns around, wondering what she means, until he sees that he is still holding his mother's diary. Oh, this is my mother's old diary. I was reading it to find some answers, like why my parents keep their marriage a secret.
You were reading about your mother and father? Can I read it with you, please?
Osea puts her claws together, looking at him with puppy eyes, and her tail is beginning to wag side to side. Silvus looks at her, a bit hesitant. for what she has been through with him? Maybe she earned it. With a smile, he leads her to the bed, and they sit together. He reads her the rest of the diary. Reading the entire diary, Osea seems to be enjoying the romance parts between his parents by the way she tears up with a smile. Silvus guesses that it could be a female thing, making him silently chuckle at the thought. He continues to read the diary with her all the way to the part where he believes there might be the answer. It reads,
Spring seeding, 11, 1426. Since our special night after our secret wedding, with my mentor being the witness, even for so long, I still could not fathom the idea of being married to the now Alpha King Sulthur. However, I began to feel strange around my belly. I thought at first it was a simple tummy ache. As time went by, I began to see my tummy rounding for each passing day. I went to the castle healer and have confirmed that I am with egg. By the spirits, I'm going to be a mother. At that moment, I was going to tell my secret husband about it. Maybe he could convince him to finally reveal our marriage to the public, as I always tried to convince him. I myself never understood why he wants our marriage to be a secret. I always assumed it has something to do with Bylark. He tells me that there is a dark presence growing around the kingdom, and he simply wants to keep me safe. Spring seedling, 17, 1426. By the spirits, I have never been so heartbroken all my life. The love of my life, Sulthur, just died during the rebirth celebration. I don't know what to do. It breaks my heart that my unborn hatchling will never know who his or her father is. It is even worse that my love will never get a chance to see our hatchling grow up.
Osea is beginning to cry at this part. Silvus feels himself saddened as he continues to read further. He is also, at the same time, frustrated by the fact he only learned half the answer that he is looking for. All he got is the simple "to protect his mother" statement, like what Arcus told him. Not bearing anymore, he decides to close the diary, earning a disappointed "aww" from Osea, who is actually enjoying it. Looking depressed, Silvus gets off the bed and walks towards the window, leaving a concerned Osea, who just watches him look out. Silvus leans to the side to gaze up upon the stars, revealing that it is nightfall. Looking at the stars with his arms crossed on the edge, he gazes with a heavy heart in his chest. Remembering the old story his mother once told him, he whispers, "Are you up there, Mother? Is Father with you?"
You still miss her, do you?
He hears Osea ask him, as he hears her coming toward him. Silvus only nods, keeping his eyes glued to the stars above. More tears come out of his face. Osea gently uses her talon to wipe one of his tears away. After a long pause, Silvus finally speaks. "Losing my mother is just so hard, you know." Silvus takes a deep breath and wipes off his own tears. "The best I can do is just gaze at the stars, hoping my mother is up there with my father."
Do you think my mom and dad are up there too?
Osea asks him, as she begins to hold his claw and nuzzles his neck. The mention of Osea's parents makes Silvus wonder. He remembers her telling him that she was raised only by her father. He guides her back to the bed. He asks her, "So you have no idea what your mom is like?"
Well,
Osea falls into thought.
My father used to tell me that I'm more like my mother.
Really?
Oh yes, he tells me that my mother loved history as much as I do. Guess that could be due to the fact my mother is from Maglo.
Your mother's from Maglo? Silvus perks up, surprised. No wonder that Osea is such an intellectual sweetheart.
That's right. At the time, my father visited Maglo. He met my mother in a nearby settlement. Perhaps she's actually a daughter of a Delta Lord of the settlement. Daddy used to tell me that my mom loved to lecture him about history stuff.
She giggles to herself.
Makes me wonder how Targan felt when Mom did the same.
Silvus sees her expression turn sour at the mention of Targan. She faces him and asks,
Do you think there's any hope for him to see reason?
The poor girl seems to be conflicted. Despite what happened, deep down, Osea still cares for her brother. She cares so much that she hopes to redeem him somehow. In response, Silvus wraps his arm around her to give her some comfort. He struggles for the right words to cheer her up. When he first saw Targan, he seemed set with his ambition to reunite Avalonia under his rule, yet misguided. In the end, this whole war was not completely Targan's fault, as he is simply a puppet to Bylark, who wants revenge against the kingdom on behalf of the mysterious necromancers. Come to think of it, he remembers Osea's testimony about Targan's change when losing his father. He wonders if Targan is being more motivated by grief, wanting to be a great Beta Lord just like his father. In thought, Silvus begins to wonder if he himself is at risk of ending up like Targan. Like him, they both lost their precious parent, motivating them to do what they do, uniting Avalonia with the purpose of getting things back to normal, yet in two different paths. Targan is following a dark mistcaster as he himself continues to be faithful to the Mystatorium. Silvus turns his head to Osea and asks, What do you think? He is your brother after all. Osea takes a small breath, turning her gaze to the alchemy garden, admiring the beautiful flowers.
I believe my brother is only doing this because he believes he has no choice. He truly believes that he's helping raptors.
Osea turns her gaze back to Silvus.
Yet now he's being used by Bylark for his own gains.
Osea begins to cry, thinking of the fate of her brother. Must be very heartbreaking for her. By instinct, Silvus grabs her into a hug and strokes her mane softly, letting her tears flow down on his chest. After a long pause, Silvus gently moves her face to his eyes and tells her, You and I both know that your brother had committed atrocities in the kingdom, yet his heart is in the right place. Silvus closes his eyes briefly and opens them again and continues. Bylark is the one to blame for twisting his mind, so I will promise you, if given the chance, I will spare him when possible.
Really?
Osea's face begins to form a small smile, still with her sad eyes. Instead of words for an answer, Silvus moves in and kisses her on the lips. He feels his heart beating fast in his chest. The female with him does not fight it, yet she welcomes it. Kissing back, she gently moves her arms around his neck. Their tails begin to intertwine, wrapping each other affectionately. With red cheeks, the two young raptors retreat from each other for a moment for Silvus to say, I owe you a lot. I will do anything to keep you happy. I love you.
Sylvie, I love you too.
Osea replies and kisses him back again. Throughout his entire life, Silvus could never imagine himself ever finding the female of his dreams. He feels his cheeks getting even redder and his heart beats even faster. After all the kissing, Osea begins to nuzzle affectionately into his neck as he nuzzles her back on her cheeks. For the rest of the night, they continue to embrace the love they have for each other. The next morning, Silvus finds himself lying in his mother's bed, slowly waking up. He looks around to see Osea lying on top of him, cuddled up, still sleeping with a smile. She looks very cute the way she sleeps. Silvus puts on an affectionate smile, watching her make all small snoozes as her body continues to slowly move up and down. He makes a few strokes on her mane and gently gets out of the bed, not wanting to wake her up. Silvus walks to a nearby window to see the sunrise, gazing at the calm, mystical forest up north. He thinks about the next plan of the war. This is the moment. He is going to lead his troops to Monchester. He remembers he has promised the female he loves that he will not kill Targan if given the chance. He looks around the room to see his mother's private shrine in the corner. He walks up to it and kneels like a chicken, putting his claws together in prayer to the spirits for guidance, hoping that he will not only end the war as soon as possible, but also fulfill the promise he made to Osea.
What you doing?
The sound of a tired Osea is heard. Silvus turns his head to see her getting up with a yawn, showing her sharp teeth as she stretches her limb and tail. I'm doing a quick prayer to the spirits before I head out for you know what. Silvus replies, admiring how beautiful the female on the bed is. With a giggle, Osea gets off her bed and walks up beside him and asks if she can join the prayer. Silvus nods yes and shifts to the side, allowing her to kneel in the same chicken-like position. She puts her claws together, joining in. They both make their prayers for good health and fortune, and more importantly, for the war to finally be over. Finishing his prayer, Silvus gets up and waits for Osea to finish hers. While he waits, he thinks about her safety. She might not be much of a fighter, but she does need some form of protection if something bad happens to him. Seeing her finish her prayer, Silvus asks her, getting an idea. Have you ever used a staff before? Osea looks at him, curious, and replies,
I think I did as part of my tutoring. Why do you ask?
Silvus gestures her to follow him to the wardrobe. He opens it up and takes out the staff of Maglo and shows it to her, making gasp in awe. If anything happens to me, Osea, I know you don't like to commit violence, but you still need something to defend yourself, which is why I would like you to give this to you. He tells her, giving her the staff. He sees her admire the staff with the same look he had when first laid eyes upon it. She scans the staff up and down with her eyes and looks at Silvus and says,
You really think I could use this? Isn't this your family heirloom?
Silvus walks up to her, giving her a small hug and peck on her snout, and tells her, For what we've been through, at this point you became like family to me. So I am trusting you to use it to protect yourself. There is no telling whether a dark mist caster or worse might come to do you harm. Looking hesitant at first, Osea eventually accepts it with a smile that Silvus trusts her with it. They are going to give each other another kiss until knocking is heard, interrupting him. Yo, cousin, it's me, Eco. Whatever you and Osea are doing in there, we gotta get going. It's time. I'll be there in a sec, Silvus calls out, looking disappointed. Hearing footsteps run off, he turns his head to Osea and asks her if she is ready. She nods with an uneasy smile, not only wanting to be with Silvus, but also to confront her brother, tightening her grip on the staff he gave her. The sun rises high in all its might. In the Maglo forest, the entire royal alliance marches along, with Silvus taking helm, wearing his royal armor, proud, now riding on a grade-scale Carnotaur. With him is Osea, wearing blue-painted armor with a small cape that Silvira used to wear. Behind her back is the same staff that Silvus gave her. Also with him are his inner circle. Leon commands the main royal army. Orzine commands the rebuilt Maglo militia in blue colors, with Eco following beside. Tritus commands the Tricians in purple. Zira commands Shurasic in green. Nardo commands Creston in red. Key the Kobold King leads a mix of royal forces and rotting Ronin. And Buck, who commands Monchester defectors, wearing a mix of orange and black to differ themselves from their rebel counterparts. All 7 of Silvus's trusted allies and useful commanders follow his lead deep south of the forest, filled with herds of stegos minding their own business, eating the nearby bushes, while packs of velocities are seen watching with curiosity like small puppies. At least 5 sunrises pass by. The Royal Alliance approaches the southern Maglo border, now reclaimed by the Royal Army. The border gates slowly open to reveal a mountain path to Monchester. The Emerald Mountains, a row of ginormous lush green mountains, which are also used to border between the 2 western betadomes. Silvus takes a look back to check on his troops to see they are all right, before refocusing back to the path ahead. Silvus and his army continue to cross into Monchester, not Hephaestion, mind you. Taking 7 more sunrises, they come to the northern grasslands of Monchester, a wondrous lush valley filled with bright green grass, with patches of bushes around a cliff, with a large cactus or 2. So far, the enemy did not try to ambush them. All Silvus can see are more native dinosaur herds, like the Mayas, gathered around a lake to drink water, while more petrodons are seen flying in the skies. One night, the army decides to make camp, resting up. In the middle of the camp, a royal scout with a scroll in his claw makes his way through the tents, earning concerned stares from nearby mingling troops, who are either sharpening their weapons or training for the battle ahead. The scout makes his way to the largest tent, where Silvus is seen having a meeting with his inner circle. Into the tent, the scout gains the attention of all eyes present. The scout makes a quick salute and says, "Your Highness, while I was scouting, I was approached by a group of Monchestians, with Targan himself telling me to deliver you this message." "A message from Targan? Please give it to me," Silvus orders, raising his claw for the scout to approach him and give him the message. With the scroll and claw, Silvus opens it up and reads through. "What is the message?" Buck calls out, while Silvus continues to read. The more Silvus reads the scroll, his face begins to turn into a face of concern. He looks to all his allies, giving him worried looks, especially Osea when it comes to her brother. "Guys, Targan is challenging me to a royal duel." Silvus turns the scroll for all to read. The scroll reads, "To the one who calls himself Ultimar Silvus, you are starting to prove to be an utter nuisance in my ambition to reunify the kingdom. However, I hear from my surviving soldiers that you showed mercy to those with honor. If you don't seek any more bloodshed, I, Beta Lord Envar Targan, hereby challenge you to the royal duel, taking place in my castle throne room. If you accept, let it be you and I fight till either the death or submission. The one who loses must immediately surrender the war." The royal duel, as Silvus remembers, is when one noble challenges another, and they fight in claw combat until one either submits or dies. Usually it happens when peaceful debates fail. All raptors present in the tent begin to argue whether Silvus should accept the duel. Osea, Leon, Key, and Buck believe Silvus should decline, not wanting to risk not only his life but the entire war. Fee, Ego, Tritus, and Nidus believe Silvus should accept, due to having faith in him to win, since it would mean winning the war without more casualties. Orzim only stands next to Silvus, who both watch them argue with uneasy faces. "I accept," Silvus blurts out, stopping the argument. All eyes turn to him in shock. When asked by Osea why he would accept, Silvus walks in between his group and tells them, "To tell you all the truth, I'm getting tired of all the fighting. This duel may be our only chance to stop this war for good without bloodshed. If I am going to be the Alpha King, then I must learn to take big risks. That is true. Orzine walks up next to Silvus. All rulers of old, especially the Ultimars, are always faced with hard decisions. It must take big risks for the greater good. All raptors present agree with his uncle's point. Some, like Osea, are a bit hesitant, getting a bad feeling. Silvus takes notice and walks up to her and asks if she is okay. She tells him that she has a bad feeling about the duel and is worried that it will result in someone's death. The Royal Alliance approaches the city of Rookengrad itself in the middle of the Green Valley, with even more cactuses around it, while dawn approaches. It is a large stone city, similar to Athera, except the buildings have a more square appearance. Above the main gates are the orange flags with the rook symbols. Hordes of rebels are gathered around the main gates, armed. They all have their eyes on the royal army to keep watch. The Royal Alliance continue their march until they are at least 10 feet apart from each other. Silvus commands the troops to stand by and gets off his Carnotaur, allowing Osea and Buck to come with him, as it is their home after all. He gets a closer look to the horde of rebels keeping watch if anything happens. Leading the rebel force is a white-scaled armored female with a purple feathered mane and tail. Her mane is in a ponytail style due to how long it is. Looking at him seriously, the female briefly squints her magenta eyes in suspicion.
Are you the one called Ultimar Silvus?
She asks, with a serious tone in her voice, hinting that she is in her late 20s. I am indeed, and I, he shows her the scroll, accept your Beta Lord's challenge. The female takes the scroll and reads over it. Giving it to a nearby rebel, she greets her guests with a bow.
I am Jem, serving sentinel of the Monchester forces and bodyguard of Envar Dargan. I am pleased that you accepted his challenge.
Jem lifts herself up and gives further instructions.
Before I take you in, my Beta Lord demands that you bring only 2 companions. The rest of your royal army must stay.
Silvus gives her an inquisitive look, suspicious if there is some kind of trap. Taking notice of his look, Jem assures him that Targan is honorable and will not go back on his word. Silvus looks to the Envar cousins to clarify if Jem is telling the truth. Osea tells him that being his sister, she can confirm that Targan holds a sense of honor despite his state. So Silvus agrees to go in with the Envar cousins, since they know more of the city better than any other raptor. Jem motions for them to follow into Rookengrad, with Jem leading. Silvus and his chosen group pass through the rebel horde, who are all making way for them to approach the gates, opening up slowly. Silvus follows into the main street to see a crowd of unhappy raptors gathered in between the rockway being blocked by rows of guards. As much as he wants to admire the stonecraft of both the buildings and the statues, he cannot ignore the faces of depression being sensed from the raptors. He can even see signs of starvation from the raptors due to how thin they look. I was not kidding when I said the war is taking its toll, Buck whispers into Silvus's ear.
How can my brother let this happen?
Osea sobs, trying to hold back a tear. The best that Silvus and the gang can do is gaze as they continue to follow Jem to the castle. End of chapter 28. Sheesh, okay, that is the longest chapter I read. I hope it's good enough despite my stuttering and there are some words that I kind of excluded or try to correct myself. Please forgive me, and also forgive for the long chapter. However, please leave a like and comment, and please subscribe to my channel. And please, I hope you all could get your friends, tell all your friends about me. Be sure to either order my book and wait to see the remaining chapters of my audiobook. And I can't wait to read the rest of it. Ciao!